Leavenworth Board of Zoning Appeals meeting of August 16th. We do have a quorum. First order of business is approval of the minutes of July 19th. Does anyone have any additions, subtractions, corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So, minutes are approved. New business, 2020-23 BCA 940 Eisenhower Road. May we have the staff report, please?
Yes. All right. The applicant, Bell Investment and Property Owner HGS Developers LLC, is requesting a variance for Section 5.02A of the Adopted Development Regulations, which reads out of the table 5.0, 5.01, parking rates, specific use is retail, required parking rate is one per 200 square feet. The lot is currently located at 940 Eisenhower Road, which is currently zoned planned unit development. The PUD was established in 2004 as a commercial PUD for the 3B's Commercial Center subdivision. The subject property is adjacent to properties that are also included in that PUD, as well as Lansing properties to the south are in that city limits. The proposed development is a Dollar Tree retail store and will be roughly 9,000 square feet. Submitted site plan shows a total of 29 parking spaces based upon the required one space per 200 square feet. For retail use, the required numbers of space for the proposed site is 45. This amounts to a shortfall of 16 spaces. There's currently no shared parking agreement in place with adjacent property owners. Staff has not received any comments in regarding to this case.
Does anyone have any question?
I do.
Okay.
So, in the commercial districts that are not in PUDs, what is the parking ratio requirement?
It's the 1 per 200 square
Yes.
feet. So the parking is based on the use, not the zoning. And so, like Jackie said, it's the 1 per 200 square feet of retail use. It has nothing to do with the actual zoning district. And when this PUD was established, it specifically says in those documents that it's based on GBD, General Business District, zoning requirements. So, but again, the parking requirement is based on the use, not the zoning.
What was the rationale for zoning this area PUD?
The rezoning was done back in 2004, and from what I understand from looking at the file, it was based on some internal circulation issues and maybe some curb cuts on Eisenhower. That's what I gathered from the application and policy reports that were done 16 years ago or so, yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think there may be a representative of the surrounding of the 3B's commercial development here, and if there is, he might be able to explain a little bit more.
Okay. Questions?
Well, I noticed in the discussion, or rather the information presented, that the developer or the owner, I think it was the developer, had not received or did not have any feedback from adjacent property owners. Has that status changed yet? Or
I know that one of the Bohannons who owns the 3B Commercial Center did call our office today, but that was the first time that we had heard directly from someone in our office.
what sort of did they provide any feedback?
He just wanted to make sure that we were aware that there is no shared parking agreement, for this retail use to utilize other parking spaces in that development, like with the liquor store, or any other area.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
Was there any feedback from any of these property owners on, looks like the south side of Lewis Drive that are adjacent to that, to property 930?
No.
Thank you.
Kathy, Ron? No? Okay, we'll open the public hearing on BZA 2021-23, 940 Eisenhower. Is there someone here to speak for or against this request? Please identify yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Matt Gibbs, and I'm with HGS Developers, one of the members of the owner of the property. Also here with Mr. Richard Ogburn and Mike Riley. Richard is with Bell Investments, the proposed developer of the property. Again, I'm with HGS Developers. We've owned the property since 2008. When we purchased the vacant tract of ground, which is in the same condition it sits today. We have gone through a couple different potential buyers over the years, and our goal is to either develop the property or sell the property. Fortunately, we have a national user that is doing a substantial amount of development throughout the country currently, and we've been fortunate enough to draw onto this site within Leavenworth, and trying to make the site work. As I mentioned, we've owned it since 2008, and unfortunately haven't been able to land a user at this time. So there are some certain site characteristics that I'm sure you're all aware of if you've been by the site. But as you drive out there, and you can see on the site plan, the site is surrounded by 4 drive lanes, which is somewhat unique to have a cross-access internal drive system that borders all 4 sides, which does limit some of our ability to develop the site because we have to maintain those access and cross-access agreements. Additionally, on the south side of the cross-access agreement that runs on the south of our parcel, 2 kcs from the entrance on Eisenhower Road, there's a large retaining wall that is about, depending on where you go along the wall from the entrance to the west, anywhere from 5 to 15 feet off our property line to the north, which renders that whole sliver of ground unusable. At one point we were walking through the development and the land planning of the site and thought, could we put some parking on that strip to the south, but unfortunately the topography doesn't allow that. We've been, since we started working with Richard and his team, we've been through 4 or 5 different iterations of the site plan, trying to determine how we can add, more parking to the site. And originally we started with the 10,000 square foot Dollar Tree building, and I'm not exactly sure, Richard might be able to add to this, but I don't know how many parking spaces we had at that time, but we did reduce the building to Dollar Tree's smallest national prototype of 9,000 square feet, so we could get the required, not the required, but the 29 spots that we have on the site currently. I know the BZA goes through certain conditions to determine whether the matter at hand is approved or not. So, going down the list that we provided in the memorandum as well within the packet, the unique conditions I already stated were the topography on the south side and also the cross-access across or throughout the property. From an adjacent property standpoint, as you look and determine try to determine whether the adjacent properties are impacted, you obviously need to understand what the requirements of the user, what the parking requirements of the user are gonna be. And Dollar Tree has done studies over the years for certain locations, and as it's detailed in this memorandum, the estimated average Dollar Tree store generates 68 peak hour trips with 35 vehicles entering the site and 33 vehicles exiting the site per hour. So the average customer spends 15 minutes in the store approximately while they're in the premises. So no more than 9 spots per hour would be used at the peak time, plus the employees, which there are typically 3 or 4 employees on the site at a given time. Given those parking needs, Dollar Tree internally has, and they have a strict real estate committee that has operations, that reviews obviously the site and the location. They have reviewed this site plan and have approved this location and the parking requirements based on all their over 1,000 stores across the country. So that has passed internal approval, and if we're granted the approval today, they will move forward to development. Another item in here is a hardship for the petitioner. In doing our research of some of the neighboring municipalities, Kansas City, Kansas, Shawnee, Overland Park, and Lansing, we looked into what their parking requirements are, and I understand you guys are a different municipality, but just trying to look at some of the other municipalities around here. Kansas City, Kansas parking requirement is 4 per 1,000. Shawnee is 4 per 1,000. Overland Park is 4 per 1,000. And Lansing is 1 per 300 square feet. So, and that's all for the same type of classification that we're proposing here, the general retail use. And going from the last two are the public welfare and development regulations. I think this is pretty straightforward, but given the requirements of Dollar Tree, we don't see, in our opinion, that any of the adjacent properties or the development regulations of the city would be negatively impacted by allowing and approving this Board of Zoning Appeals variance. So with that, I would ask Richard if he would like to add anything, and I guess we would take questions at the end. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much.
My name is Richard Eichburn with Elkin and Associates, with a developer for this project. There's not much I can add to what Matt said. I will say this. He said that Dollar Tree has over 1,000 stores. They have over 15,000. They own Family Dollar and Dollar Tree. Dollar Tree generally builds a 10,000 square foot store, and with that, they want to have 50 parking spaces. But we've been looking in this area for quite some time, have not been able to find a suitable piece of property that they want. They have a real estate committee that meets once a week, and they have head of operations, head of real estate, legal, a lot of department heads in that meeting. And even though they typically want to have 50 parking spaces for a 10,000 foot building, this one's going to be 9,000 feet. They deem this site acceptable, even though the parking ratio is not what they want. But as Matt mentioned, they've had traffic studies done. In the peak period, traffic that you would typically see at a Dollar Tree store is not going to be an issue here, in their opinion. So, Dollar Tree, with your approval, we'd love to go on the site. I think they would do extremely well there. And one of the things they like to locate near Walmart. And Walmart's just right around the corner from here.
Any questions?
No questions, sir.
I have a couple. I just want to confirm that the access would be off the same driveway that's there on Eisenhower? There would be no additional curb cuts?
There's 2 accesses. There's one on Eisenhower and there's one on 10th.
Okay, yeah, yes, okay, thank you. And then my other questions for staff, are there any other properties within that PUD that's received variances?
No, I don't believe so.
Ron?
I don't have any questions.
I have one. Have any attempts been made to use shared parking?
Yes.
And have they been denied, or what's the results?
We've had ongoing conversations with the developer, is it 3Bs, Carol?
Yeah.
3Bs, and we've also, we've looked at some different things on the site plan. We have not come to an agreement, as of this date.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question, follow up on that. How many parking spaces, additional parking spaces would be available if you were to enter into a shared agreement?
We have plans, so far that you can see on the top right where the cursor is. The non-shaded spots to the east of the existing 4 that are already in place, that there's 8 there currently. We could potentially add 2 more to the east of that, depending on the topography, but the engineer has originally put on 8 that could be added in the detention area.
And the city, do they find that acceptable to have parking spots across a traffic way or a driveway?
Yeah, if parking spots were added there, that would meet the requirement for shared parking, but there would need to be a written agreement in place between the 2 property owners. There would need to be like a pedestrian, like a walkway or something installed, but yeah, they could meet that requirement with those spots up there if they were allowed.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak against this variance?
My name's Dale Bohannon, and I'm one of the developers of this property in 2004. And I can't see where they're short this many parking spaces that we can have that much traffic in there. I don't know if any of you have ever frequented that liquor store right there, but it's got a drive-through in it, and it's busy as all get out. And if we have minimal amount of parking for their store, and then they start overflowing on the street and stuff, it's really gonna impede people being able to get in and out, both the drives, let alone the liquor store there too. In 2007, when we built that building, we were 4 spots short of having enough spots for that building to work in there. And this council would not let us build that building without putting those 4 spaces in that they wanna attach the 8 to. In retrospect, it's turned out to be a good deal for us because we park our employees there and we end up with more parking lot for our liquor store. But that much traffic through there with that drive-through and those few parking spaces in peak times is going to be really difficult on that subdivision. It's going to be real hard to upkeep the roadways. I don't know what their traffic is in with tractor trailers either. This is a planned unit development, so each and everybody in this development shares the roadway expense and all that. The city has nothing to do with that. And I just think it's gonna put a hardship on everything in there, especially without enough parking spots to meet their needs. And if they start parking in Casey's or in our parking lot over there, we're gonna be without parking stalls to park for our customers for the liquor store.
Why was it a PUD from the very beginning?
I'm not certain why that they went, we questioned that too, and they would not allow us to build it if it wasn't a planned unit development.
And
That's been a few years back, and I've slept a little bit since then, and I'm not exactly certain, but I was astonished that they made it a PUD too. It's crazy to me, they have an accident in the intersection and the city police block the intersection off and drive everybody through the subdivision. You know, that makes it hard on our businesses too. And it'd probably be a different story if they maintained streets and plowed it and stuff, but, it just surprises me.
Do semis service the electrical business back there?
Does somebody service it?
Do semis go in with supplies?
They have a 53-foot trailer that comes in there about once every 2 weeks.
How big is that building, is the electrical building?
6,000 square feet,
6,000.
but 4,800 of it's warehouse.
Yeah, I would guess that parking requirement was based on it being more of a warehouse
Gotcha,
type use.
that explains it.
How much of it's warehouse?
I think it's 4,800 square feet.
So back to the developer on the dollar store, or how much of that square footage is retail, and how much of it is storage?
I want to say you have about 18% of the 9,000 square feet dedicated to stockroom.
7,300.
300.
7,380.
Yeah, that's about right.
All right.
Any other questions? Is there, go ahead.
I wanted to speak, if I could, in favor of the project. I didn't stand up here originally, but Mike Riley, 608 Delaware, Leavenworth, Kansas. Thank you for your time tonight, first of all. And I think the interesting part, I've been before the BZA a few times, and your role in this process, I think, is so interesting because it's projects like this, I think, that require and sometimes, unfortunately, need variances when it's appropriate. I look at things more from a competitive standpoint, on a local level in particular. And as Matt mentioned, when we looked at Kansas City, Kansas, Shawnee, Lansing, to name just a few, at 3 spaces per 1,000, this project falls within the margin of error if it is located directly across the street in the city of Lansing. Now, I understand that's not an issue to the citizens of Leavenworth, but when I look at trying to attract local businesses to our community, it's a hardship for certain property owners when our code and some of our regulations seem to be a little too heavy compared from a competition standpoint. So directly across the street in the city of Lansing, if this project were to go there, the parking requirement would fall almost within the margin of error where staff could probably recommend that without going through their BZA. And so when I look at those kind of things, I question whether or not the regulations just need to be adapted, and that's part of the process of coming through the BZA. The other thing I look at from a hardship standpoint, and just this particular development in particular, Casey's site is smaller than this site. Casey's site is 0.90 of an acre, so not even an acre. This is a little bit over an acre. And yet, when you think about a convenience store versus a Dollar General, from a traffic impact standpoint, I could very much argue with you that a convenience store is much more impactful from a traffic perspective than a dollar store would be, or any retail store would be. From a semi-load standpoint, fuel trucks, food, beverage, to the amount of ingress and egress happening from that C-store, basically we could put another Casey's on this site and be well within any parking requirement in this regulation, which seems odd to me, right? From a traffic perspective. I see the traffic that Casey's generates. I see the traffic that the liquor store and even the car wash generates. And yet this site would have more parking per 1,000 square foot than any of those. And so that to me comes back to the BZA is when does it make sense to provide a variance is, here's what I know. At some point in time, there's gonna be something go on this site. If it's not Dollar Tree or Dollar General or Family Dollar, there's gonna be something goes here that has a semi attached to it for delivery, that has clients attached to it for parking. And I look at that type of use as a dollar store, the in and out, the 15 minutes shopping span that the developer talked about, as less impactful and less, I guess, intensive on the neighboring property owners than currently what is there just to the west right now, as in the form of a C-store. So to me, that is where I look at some of our regs and say a variance, in my personal opinion, should apply here because of the unique nature that the reg, I think, is too heavy for this type of use, especially when you factor in, and they didn't really talk about where retail is going. Obviously, I think we all know where retail is heading, less daily traffic and more shipping traffic. But because of the less daily, their daily trips and their time in stores is shrinking down even further, right? As opposed to spending as much time in even a grocery store anymore, you're getting things shipped to your home, right? So your trips are less and your trips are quicker. And that was one thing the developer didn't mention. So I just, from a local perspective, I look at our competitive nature and are we being selected against, could we, from our competition, and I think our code is heavy in that regard. So I think the variance should be granted. But then I look at the surrounding area in this particular development itself, and I kind of shake my head and go, man, from a pure traffic impact, egress, ingress standpoint, we could put another Casey's there today, and it would work, and it would be much more detrimental to that facility, to that development, than a Dollar Tree would be. Or for that matter, a drive-through restaurant with 2,000 square feet under roof. And the traffic, imagine a really successful smaller McDonald's, right? Not McDonald's, but a really successful fast food place that had traffic backed up, stacked up in a drive-through line versus what Dollar Tree would be. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak for or against this variance? Please.
I'm Fredonia Grissom, and I live at 905. And they're gonna put a dollar store in that area? Is that what they planning on doing? Well, I can't imagine having a dollar store in that area because there's so many people going in and out of the dollar store areas all day and through the evening. I don't know what the hours are going to be there. But that's going to have a lot of all the lights and all those big trucks bringing in the goods there. That's going to be a lot of noise there. Right now, it's really, I enjoy living there. But I think it's going to impact the people on the street where the houses are.
Lewis Drive.
Lewis Drive. With all those big trucks coming in there, unloading the goods, and then people coming in all day long, and maybe around about 7 o'clock or so whenever they close up. I don't know what time they close up. The traffic coming in and out of there, and the traffic is sort of bad right now on that corner. Turning on 10th Street, coming out of that area. the traffic is bad. I don't know why the other people that where I live at didn't come up to state their opinion of it. But I just had to come up here and say, I think there's going to be too much traffic. With those trucks coming in, you know, I don't know what time they come in, but they probably come in early in the morning or in the evening time. So, and the bars coming in and out of there. So,
Okay,
that's my thought about it.
all right, thank you.
I didn't know it was gonna be a Dollar Tree that they're gonna put over there. But, myself, I think it's a bad idea because of all the noise, the traffic, and things like that.
Okay,
And there's a retaining basin there for the water. Are you gonna take that away, or a portion of it away, or what? To make the parking area?
No, the detention basin is on the address is 930 where the cursor is, and that's not included in any part of this development.
You're not gonna take any of that?
No, that's not included as part of this.
It's just this little parcel here.
Yep, that one in the middle.
The 930 is never going to be developed because it has
Right,
to-
that's a detention area and it cannot be developed.
Well, I think it's gonna be pretty noisy over there myself with the trucks and more vehicles coming in and out of there than what it is now. It's not noisy over there now, except in the morning time when that area up, it's not behind my house, but it's about 3 houses down. The trucks start coming in there, unloading or loading or whatever they're doing, and that's sort of noisy. So,
thank you.
that's my thought about it. I know they want to expand, but I think that's a bad idea for all that noise and the parking spaces that's not there, you know. So,
Now, were the residents along Lewis Drive notified? Okay. Is there anyone else? Please.
I would like to raise, or address 2 issues that were just raised. As far as hours of operation, from 9 in the morning to 9 at night. And generally, Dollar Tree has 2 truck deliveries per week. They don't have trucks coming in and out every day.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? If not, I'll close the public hearing. And a request for variance may be granted upon the finding of the board that all of the following conditions have been met. The board must make a determination on each condition, and the finding shall be entered in the record. Number 1, that the variance requested arises from such condition which is unique to the property in question, is not ordinarily found in the same zone or district, and is not created by an action or actions of the property owner or the applicant. I'll start with Commissioner Bates.
Agree.
I want to say a couple things. One is that planning in general is moving away from minimum parking standards across the nation, and so I'm hoping that's something that the city council, planning, and others will consider and reviewing the planning requirements. Not that we can consider that here, but something that we probably need to look at. But I do agree with this because, I mean, it is very unique. There are driveways on all four sides. They have no other place that they can put these parking spaces. But I do encourage you to continue your negotiations for shared parking. That obviously that we can't make that a requirement, I don't believe, but I would encourage you to do so. So I agree.
I agree.
I agree.
That the granting of the permit for variance will not adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners or residents.
I agree.
Agree?
I agree.
I agree.
That the strict application of the provisions of the development regulations from which the variance is requested will constitute unnecessary hardship upon the property owner represented in the application.
Agree.
Agree.
I agree.
Agree.
That the variance desired will not adversely affect the public health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare.
I disagree.
I agree.
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 That granting the variance desired will not be opposed to the general spirit and intent of the development regulations.
I think that the regs obviously creates a requirement for a certain number of parking spaces based on the size, but I think the applicant in this case has made a good argument why that shouldn't apply to them and isn't going to, therefore wouldn't oppose the general spirit. If it opposes the letter of the law, but not the general spirit of it, so I'm going to agree.
I agree with that statement. And agree.
I agree.
I agree.
In granting a variance, the board may impose such conditions, safeguards, and restrictions upon the premises benefited by the variance as may be necessary to reduce or minimize any potentially injurious effect of such variance upon the other property in the neighborhood and to carry out the general purpose and the intent of these development regulations. Does anyone have anything that they would like to add to the variance?
Not me.
I would encourage, I'm not going to put it in the variance, but I would heartily encourage pursuit of shared parking spaces with whomever may have some, just to relieve any potential for congestion.
Agree.
Okay, the variance is approved. Is there any other business?
We have no other business tonight. We'll let you know that we do have 2 items for the September meeting. I believe that's September 20th, Monday. Oh, yep, and just a reminder that we've got training with the city attorney scheduled for August 30th. I know that date does not work for everyone. We did the best we could to accommodate as many people as possible, but for those unable to attend, we will have that recorded so that we can post that up so anybody can watch that if you're unable to come.
Okay.
Is that gonna be in this room?
That'll be in this room,
Okay.
yep, at 6 o'clock, and we'll send out reminders.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.